You know the feeling, right? You're watching your absolute best retail employee, the one who can literally run the floor blindfolded or flawlessly manage a massive holiday rush, and they hand in their notice. It's a total punch to the gut. You invest all this time and resources into training them, only to watch that talent just walk right out the door. But here's the thing. Losing top talent isn't just some unavoidable retail tax. It's actually a completely solvable puzzle.
Welcome to today's Explainer. We're taking what are honestly pretty dry academic HR concepts and translating them into a highly actionable, everyday playbook for your sales floor. We're decoding retail staff turnover and retention today, debunking the myths and uncovering the actual proven strategies you need to keep your absolute rock stars right where they belong. Okay, let's dive right into this. Here is our roadmap for today. We'll be covering the reality of retail turnover, the magic of employee engagement, some massive myths about leaving and staying, theories of staff motivation, and finally, concrete strategies for better retention. Let's kick things off with Section 1, the reality of retail turnover. Look, turnover isn't just a basic cost of doing business. It is a vital health metric we need to actively diagnose. But we've got to make a really crucial distinction here. Not all turnover is bad. Seriously, on one hand, we have desirable turnover. That's the healthy shedding of underproductive employees, which makes room for fresh skills. But then, you contrast that with undesirable turnover. This is the painful, expensive loss of your highly skilled team members. This is the stuff that directly results in lost sales and a massive hit to your customer experience. And you know the old saying, to manage it, you have to measure it. The employee turnover rate formula is super straightforward. It's just the number of employees who left, divided by the average number of employees, multiplied by 100. If you see this number spiking, well, you know you've got a systemic issue you need to address. Things like poor job design, low pay, or maybe a lack of team cohesion. Now, this stat from the source material absolutely blew my mind. Depending on your specific organization, retaining 80 to 90% of your staff is actually considered the benchmark of a highly functional retail business. Notice it's not 100%. Retaining 80 to 90% means an attrition rate of 10 to 20% is actually totally healthy. That's that desirable turnover we literally just talked about, making room for growth. All right, moving on to Section 2, the magic of employee engagement. So how do we actually hit that 80 to 90% sweet spot? Well, it all comes down to what we call a psychological contract. Now, employee engagement isn't just a piece of paper you sign on day one. It's an invisible, psychological bond between the employee and the organization. When an employee is truly engaged, they get their purpose, they are totally aligned with the company's goals. They aren't just clocking in to, refold denim displays for 8 hours. They are driven by the experience and the passion for the work. This psychological contract, it acts like an invisible glue holding your entire retail team together, which naturally reduces voluntary turnover. Let's shift gears to Section 3, myths about leaving and staying. Okay, this is perhaps the biggest myth out there, the idea that simply throwing money at the problem will fix it, that a bump in pay automatically buys loyalty. The reality? Yeah, not so much. Not all employees leave for monetary reasons. In fact, if someone stays purely because you threw a salary hike at them, they probably aren't fully committed to your organizational goals in the first place. The source material reveals that a massive amount of employee turnover actually happens because of a cultural misfit or poor interpersonal relationships and communication. A raise simply won't fix a toxic environment. Let's rapid fire through a few more of these pervasive myths because they are everywhere. First, the idea that all retentions are good and all turnovers are bad. Boom, we already debunked that. Second, that success is determined purely by the numbers. Nope. Keeping 10 totally disengaged employees is way worse than keeping 5 highly engaged ones. Third, that confident, highly skilled performers simply cannot be retained if a competitor comes knocking. Absolutely false. You can totally retain them by figuring out and meeting their specific career needs. And finally, the most dangerous myth of all, that HR managers are solely responsible for retention. Listen to this. While HR definitely designs the overarching schemes, it's the immediate supervisor on the retail floor who exercises the absolute most influence in convincing an employee to stay. Let's get into the science of this in Section 4, theories of staff motivation. We really need to build our retention plans on actual scientific principles, rather than just guessing. So let's look at the rule of 3 for motivation. First up, need theory. Basically, people are driven by unsatisfied desires. The real-world application? Give your staff concrete goals to conquer, like hitting a weekend sales target. Second, expectancy theory.
Humans behave based on what they expect will happen next. So you need to make sure clear, positive outcomes, like preferred scheduling, are visibly built in as a reward for loyalty. And third, equity theory. This one is all about fairness. You've got to ensure the return on their effort feels proportionate and fair compared to their peers. Needs, expectations, and equity. It's that simple. Which brings us to our grand finale, Section 5, Strategies for Better Retention. Let's take all that academic theory and turn it into a highly actionable daily playbook for retail managers. We call these the 8 A's of retention. Here are the first 4. Number 1, acquire the right candidates. Getting a better fit right from day one means they're a much better long-term investment. Number 2, accommodate a diverse workforce. Welcoming different backgrounds creates this vibrant, dynamic culture where people actually want to show up. Number 3, affirm teamwork. Try assigning group tasks and rewarding team performance to minimize conflicts and build real cohesion. And number 4, assist in financial stability. Helping employees with financial acumen gives them peace of mind, which means they can be way more focused and committed when they're on the floor. Rounding out the 8 A's, we have number 5, adequate training and development. This makes your employees feel valued, plus it actively upgrades your store's overall capabilities. Win-win. Number 6, aided mentorship. Pairing people up fosters knowledge sharing and literally develops your future store leaders. Number 7, appraise change. When big organizational shifts happen, give your employees some autonomy and actually invite their feedback. It massively reduces resistance. And finally, number 8, appreciate work-life balance. Flexible schedules reduce burnout, especially around those crazy holidays. And just respecting their personal time creates unbreakable loyalty. So the crucial takeaway is this. Retention doesn't just happen by accident. It is an active, daily practice of engagement, fair motivation, and clear strategy. Think back to those 8 ads we just went through. Which ad will you implement in your retail store tomorrow? Don't let this just be another explainer you listened to and forgot about. Take these concepts, apply them to your team immediately, and watch your turnover rate drop as your absolute best employees decide to stay and build a future with you. Thanks so much for joining me today, and I'll catch you next time.